I love printing. I love printing. I love it. I love printing.
Hey everybody, I want to welcome you back to another episode of Printer to Printer Chat with me, Warren Werbitt. Today we are joined by Mike Philie of the Philie Group. So welcome, Mike.
Welcome. Thanks, Warren. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Why don't you give us a 60-second snapshot about what you do to help people in our world?
I work with privately held printing companies. When I say printing, it's print, mailing, wide format. It's graphic arts companies throughout in North America. And not to make light of it, but I really work with companies that are trying to get from here to there safely. And sometimes here is a great place and they're just trying to get better. And sometimes here is not a great place and they have to get better. And it just depends. And every company is a little bit different. The culture, the personalities, the team that they have, the markets that they're in. And what I try to do is try to come in and assess where they are, where they're trying to get to, and help them put together a plan that they can execute to help them get to where they want to go safely.
And in doing that, I just want to touch on, is there any areas that you are a specialist in?
I'm hesitant to use the word specialist or expert in.
Sorry, I meant special. I didn't mean specialist. I meant special.
I am special, Warren.
You are. Only your mother and me said that.
That's right. So, what I'm special in, Warren, is really working with owners, CEOs, and senior teams, right? Figuring out where they need to go. Now, that usually revolves around how do we grow this business? So it oftentimes gets involved in selling teams. And where are we going with those guys? And who are we calling on and why? What's our value proposition? How do we separate ourselves from the pack? So I get involved in a lot of that, but it usually always starts with dealing with the Warrens of the world. And it starts with dealing with them because if they're not committed, if they're not involved, it's not going to happen.
Say that again.
So if you're not committed and if you're not involved, it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but you have to be in the room. You have to be invested in this. That's why I don't, when printing companies call me up and say, hey, I want you to work with my sales team. I'm really not interested in that. If I'll work with you as the owner, and together we'll work with the sales team. If we have a sales manager or anything like that, we'll do that together. I'll drive, but you need to be invested in it. You need to be involved.
So I want to thank you for being on the show. There's really not much else for us to talk about. I want to thank you for bringing that up because one thing that I have always said since I'm involved in this business, it starts at the top. And I cannot believe one more time, I cannot believe how many owners are not in the game, but have expectations of everyone in their business to be in the game. How often do you go into a place where the owner is not in the game, but has high expectations of everyone else?
Well, it does happen, right? Because face it, not every owner is a salesperson or comes from the sales background, right? Some come from manufacturing, come from finance, from technology side of things. So I get it that that's not going to be their forte. But as an entrepreneur,
sorry, doesn't have to be the forte, but the owner has to be in the game.
They have to be involved. They have to be relentlessly driving the sales effort. Now, again, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily knocking on doors, but they need to support. They need to set the expectations. They need to have accountability. All of those different aspects of it. They are providing the resources as well, and right. And also they're the ones assembling the team.
So now I'm going to switch from the owner to sales. How many salespeople do you bump into that think they own the company or the customer or responsible for everything?
Well, so there are a lot, right? But one of the things is in this industry, you know this as well, if not better than I do, Warren. We've done it to ourselves a little bit in this industry, right? So back in the day, we hired salespeople who we thought could be good, and we wanted them to hunt, kill, skin, write up the jobs, do the asset. We wanted them to do everything. We wanted them to own everything, and we wanted to print. Right. So we didn't get as involved. And you know what? For a long time, that worked very, very well.
Agreed.
But as things change, right? So the needs change now a little bit. And now how we got customers in the past is a whole lot different than how we do it today. Some of the guys are just not well versed in in business development in today's world, because it's much, much different than 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
But how long does it take you to identify in the sales team who's good and who's not?
Well, you can usually figure that out at the end of the first day or two. You know, when you start asking.
Really? It takes, wait. With your experience, it takes you 2 days?
Well, I give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's not what I said. And I
Yeah,
don't want
well,
benefit.
yeah.
No, I'm not trying to be funny. I want to be really real here because
No,
I hear a lot.
you can usually tell, Warren. You can usually tell,
Okay.
and a lot of it goes back to, you know, what their view is on business development. You know, are they nurturing existing accounts that they've had for 10 years, which is extremely important for the business. Don't get me wrong, but also part of the important part is growing business, not only with existing accounts but getting new opportunities. And parts of it is really understanding how to leverage your past successes and now take them and do more with it. I still remember a great conversation with one of your guys. In fact, I use this line all the time. This is a true story. In one of your conference rooms, he was telling me about one of his accounts. And I won't go into the nitty gritty because then everybody will know, but.
Oh, I don't care. By the way, the company's bankrupt and they don't have those accounts.
But still, he was telling me, I mean, he knew every single detail of how that company went to market. And in fact, then he commented on how the marketing department had a lot of younger folks in there that were inexperienced and how they really relied on him to keep them out of the weeds. And he knew not only sizes and dimensions, but applications and substrates and all that different thing. And so he got all done talking about that. And it was about, if I recall, it was about a $700,000 or $800,000 account for him. And he got all done, and I said, well, that's great. I said, how many other people in Montreal are you calling on that sort of look like that? And he looked at me and he goes, but he got it. He got it at that point.
But okay, so I know who you're talking about, and he didn't get it. Well, you know, and you know why he didn't get it? Because in the end, in the end, my company went down. And I take responsibility for it because I was the head of the company, even though I didn't do everything. But when I look at my sales team at the time and where we faltered is I had a bunch of legacy guys who thought they were legends in their own mind. And by the way, they were all good people. So I'm not discounting them as people outside of the office. But inside, they basically thought that everything would be as is and maybe carried the whole way through, and that's how life would be. You know, when you get a big order for 100 grand, you make a 10 grand commission and you times it by 12. Well, I could tell you in my personal career, every time I've done that, that order has fallen away and it's amounted to zero. So I've learned that, stop counting before it's there, right? But that particular person had a niche. He knew what he was talking about with you, and he had a captive market. Yet for some reason, he was under the impression they were going to come to him. And then when the market started to change, we tried to sit with him, explain to him 3 years before to start building and harvesting some new, but still talk the same way he talked with you.
Yeah, so I think so this goes back to what we talked about right in the beginning, Warren, the importance of the owners, right? Really setting the stage, setting the bar for acceptable performance. If you want to work here, if you want to sell here, this is how we do it. This is how we roll. These are the expectations. And what happens is we don't have a lot. Here's the reality of it. We don't have a line of people waiting outside our front door, waiting to get in, that are fully capable and ready to hit the ground running.
What do you mean?
Kind of a catch-22. I know,
well,
maybe you did, but.
No, I didn't. Or how many places do you walk into that you could honestly say, or do you say to the owner, those one or two need to go? Because I today have the stomach to tell anybody that I see when I feel that.
You know, the challenge is we're always trying to save everybody. We're trying to convert them. And for the last 15 years, we've been trying to elevate everybody's game and try to make everybody into consultative, solution-based salespeople and all that kind of stuff, right? Which sounds great. When really in reality, probably 2 out of 10 of the current reps that we have are probably wired to really do that. The rest of them have a place, but they're not going to be the ones that are knocking down the home runs every day. but there's other roles for them, right? And the key thing is, from an owner standpoint, is understanding the difference. What are the expectations for this group? What are the expectations for that group? Right? And let's not confuse the matter, because everybody will be disappointed.
Right. So all that to say, from where I sit, no, not everybody has a place anymore. And I think you're being politically correct. As an owner, to other owners listening, that's bullshit. We need to act and take ownership of our businesses. And it's not that by the way, I'm as guilty as that for not wanting to disrupt things and keep people. I'm not saying back then I was who I am today. If I was then who I am today, I might still be in business. And it's becoming mission critical for business owners and small, medium-sized businesses. And I'm not talking the major companies that have major contracts and accounts. The average printer does not have contracts for millions of dollars of work, right?
Right.
And some of those owners are still paying 10% to some of these reps.
So it does go back to setting those expectations and holding people accountable for it. So you mentioned back in the NAPL days, I wrote a research paper on how the CEO needs to be the CSO, the Chief Sales Officer. And again, it doesn't mean that they are the ones knocking on the door, but it kind of laid out all the different things that they were responsible for having happen in their business, whether it's marketing and lead gen and funnel management and what are we doing for presentations and what are we doing for collateral? What are we doing with account reviews and all of those different things? At the end of the day, that has to happen. It's no different than in the press room that we need to be every day. What are we doing to get our make readies 30 seconds faster, a minute faster, 2 minutes faster, incrementally better all the time, right? And our net press speeds and all the things we do there, we need to be doing on the sales side as well.
Right.
And we're probably behind the curve. Our industry, I think, is in general, very general statement, is behind the curve in a lot of those things.
Pretty accurate. Question: in the companies that you've consulted with, do all of the owners at times go with all of the reps to visit major accounts?
Not anywhere near enough.
Really? So, okay. So my thoughts on this one again, and again, this is all because of my experience. My experience comes from learning and getting burnt, right? My experience. I'm not a genius by birth. I'm a genius by making mistakes and spending millions of dollars and getting run over and beaten up, right? And I got like a soft forehead here that probably should have a metal plate put in. But I was always a believer that the owners do go to some of the accounts with the reps. And it's not on a every day, but I also found in my place, I had a lot of reps that were like, they tried everything under the sun to not have me go with them, right? Which is wrong, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. As an owner visiting with a customer, you get to ask questions that your reps will never ask. You will get answers that they would never answer the rep, but they're out of respect to who you are in the position. They will answer you because they acknowledge your authority to some degree, because you're at C-level. Then, and you get to talk to them about the relationship. And what reps don't understand, my experience is that a lot of the reps felt that they were losing something, maybe their authority, when in fact, it's not their company, it's not their money. They're not allowed to make any of those decisions on their own, but by going with the owner, they are fortifying the relationship, meaning hopefully they're going to do more business and the owner's going to ask for more business because the rep didn't.
Yeah, so I look at it as a great way for the owner, and you said something is spot on. The owner can ask questions that the rep just can't ask. Not necessarily that he wouldn't, but he can't.
Would never think of asking.
Yeah. So there's a tremendous advantage there. And if nothing else at all, Warren, is if the owner goes there and says, hey, you know what, Warren, just want to appreciate the business you've been giving us.
Well, it's two things.
We appreciate how you treat Johnny here. I think we've got a great team here. And it's the owner's opportunity, though, to support their sales team, elevate them. But now here, but we take it a step further, though, here, is that you can go and you can do that with the buyer, if you will, But as the owner, as the president of the company, you now also have the opportunity to develop higher up relationships, not necessarily with people who are putting out orders, but people who are influencing things. Maybe they're influencing budgets. And now as owner to owner or C-level to C-level, now you develop those multiple layer type relationships. And that gives you a tremendous advantage with that account.
When you're training people, you ever recommend to an owner to get rid of a guy?
Yeah, we've said, hey, look, I don't think this guy's cut out for this anymore. Doesn't make sense. He doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to do it.
Owner
It's
reaction?
hurting them, hurting you.
Owner reaction?
Yeah. We've been thinking about that.
And do they follow through when you're there or not?
Usually eventually, but it takes a while, right? It takes a while. And here's my comment to that, right? When we've had those difficult decisions, those difficult conversations, and when we finally do it, usually it's a relief for the person, and it's a relief for the owner and the company, because usually everybody in the company knows as well that this person isn't really suited for this job. And again, we handle it a little differently, Warren, you and I do. I kind of look at it as it's not whether the guy is doing a job or not, is it the right job for that person? And actually, I take responsibility. So when I ran a business, I would hire people and I'd say, look, if I hire you, I need to take responsibility for helping you be successful here. I own part of this because I hired you. Now you got to do your part, right? But it's a two-way street here. And so part of that, falls back onto there as well. But we had this conversation last week with somebody. No one who's had to let somebody go for whatever reason said, I probably should have waited a little bit longer. Right? It's no different than I go back to the press room as an example, because if we have a press that's not performing well, right? Everybody's eyes are on it. And everybody's trying to get it to where it should be, right? Well, it's the same thing on the sales team. Okay, let's not just say, hey, sales guys, you need to figure this out. No, this is from a senior management side, everybody's in the barrel here. How do we make this thing work? What's not working? How do we fix it? What do we need to do different? What do I need to do different? What do you need to do different? Let's get our marching orders and let's go forward here. We're going to have the bad apples every once in a while. I look at it from a hiring authority. That's my problem. I hired wrong.
I started using the assessments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, psychological assessments work. I don't call them whatever you want, but I mean, there's Caliper and a few others. But I would spend $1,800 with a site company to do them. First of all, I will tell you that I did it twice myself. And the report came back and said, the guy said to me, one, I should have been a farmer. And the other thing he said to me was, it's a good thing you own your own business because nobody would hire you. But aside from that, doing the test, seeing the results, those things nailed me to a T. Yep. Nailed me to a T to the point where when I started having others do it, I know they didn't lie. And I followed those tests. And on many occasions, I didn't hire people because of them. Or if we had people working where we did the test, not me, but the person I was working with was able to sit down with them, review the assessment, strengths and weaknesses, and at least then see if there was a possibility, a willingness to want to change and learn some new things. Right?
Yeah, I think they're extremely important, especially in today's world, because we're bringing in people that maybe are new to our industry, right? And they don't have that 15-year track record, perhaps, of doing the same thing. And now they're doing it with a different badge. And so what the things I've done the same thing. I've taken like all the tests and they nailed me to the T as well.
A little scary.
Yes. But what I try to encourage folks to do, though, if you're going to use those assessments, not only using them for hiring, and to me, it's to validate what you think. To me, it's not a pass fail on the test. It's to help validate what your own assessment and your team's assessment is. The other part that I really encourage people to do is once they're hired, don't put the test away, because that test helps you understand how to communicate with that person, how to motivate that person, how. What are they trying to gain? What are they trying to get away from? I mean, their strengths and weaknesses, as you said earlier. And that becomes a tool to help coach them forward. Too many times I see people hire somebody, take the test, file it away, never to be seen again. Yet that's so valuable.
Do you find that most companies are staying on continuing training or education?
Actually, it's interesting you say that. I see a resurgence of that.
Took you too long to answer, so it's probably a little too long still.
No, because actually it's a great segue.
Yeah.
So as you know, we just kicked off our Graphic Communications Leadership Institute for emerging leaders. And we had, I think it was 13 companies represented in this. This is a 3-year program that we meet 4 times a year. And so these are companies that have committed and sought out people within organizations they want to invest in and help develop them as future managers, future leaders of the industry. So we got off to a great start. I mean, kicked it off in the first quarter of post-COVID. I think a lot of people weren't quite sure we could pull it off, but we did. And everybody was safe, everything all worked out, all masked and all that. And off to a great start with that. And so it was nice to see the turnout from, small, medium, large organizations.
Oh,
a lot of
good. That's encouraging.
So it's really, and the other thing, levels of people. I mean, we had an account manager. We had one young man who's actually still in college. He's going to finish up in May, and he's going to go work for his family's business. So he's already into this program. All the way to, we had one gentleman, a VP of operations, who's been in the business for 30 years. So that was effective. I mean, it was pretty cool. So yes, I think there's an appetite for that. But here's the thing: the challenge is where do they go? What do they do? How do we train them? How do we get that information?
Well, either they call you for training or they call me. I mean, that's the only 2 options they have.
I think if they want to do it right?
If you want to do it right, absolutely, it's the only way to go.
We do something very similar with folks like you, Warren, where we have a program going on for owners and CEOs of businesses, so that to teach them to help them to become the CEO that their company really deserves. So all the things we talked about, sales and expectations and all that stuff, boy, we just drum that into them.
Bob Rosen's book, Graphic Arts CEO, Everything You Want to Know. I carried that book around with me. I think that book was $225 when I bought it. I think there's another edition coming out soon, if it didn't, which you'll send me, signed. But no, but I walked around with it because every chapter, you can't sit down and read the whole book. You're going to fall asleep. But depending on the day and what you're doing, it's a great refresher. And if it's something that you didn't know in a particular area, he really lays it out. It really is a handy CEO book, and oh my, I mean, I keep it with me today.
I think to your point, Warren, with that book. So think about this for a minute, right? One of the things we see is a common trait with leading CEOs and their teams. They really become lifelong learners. They're always trying to get better each and every day. Right? They're not only working in their business, they're working on their business. And it's extremely important, and more important today than ever before.
Any parting words on the industry, what you think, what you feel? You're only allowed to be upbeat because we don't accept downbeat.
Yeah, so I look at it this way. This is the only industry I've ever been in, Warren. I've been in this since the ninth grade. So just starting to get the hang of it. Working on it every day.
Takes a while.
But I've never been. I'm excited about this industry. For those who are working on their business, there's tremendous upside, right? And there's still a ton of opportunities and a lot of opportunities for growth, and we see it every day. These businesses that are adding new capabilities, new equipment, and it's not a build it, they will come. They've got the business and they're cooking. Yeah, so I mean, but these, the owners today are on the ball. They really know what they're doing, and so I see a lot of upside. But I look at it this way, especially with this pandemic, that depending upon different parts of the country, some are more advanced stages than others. But we have some customers that continue to thrive and never really miss a beat. We have other customers that are just starting to emerge and trying to figure out how to get back to go to market. And we have some customers that may never come back the way they once were. The challenge is as printers, we can't wait for things to just get better on their own. We need to be proactive, right? You've heard me say this a bunch of times. There are 3 groups of people. Maybe there's 4, but there's 3 that I mentioned. There are those that make things happen. There are those that watch things happen. And there are those that wonder what happened.
Right.
And we have a choice. We do. We really have a choice each and every day of which one
always
of
have a
those
choice.
columns do we want to be in. And for those that are trying to make things happen, there's some good stuff going on with it.
Mike, always, we're going to keep this one going. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
It's always great to chat with you. So thank you. Everybody, Warren Werbitt, what they think. I love print.